This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. Welcome to The Good Ride, where we make mediocre matter, one good setup at a time, and this is the Season Equipment Aero. Next to it is the Nexus, and next to that is the Forma. I rode this in a wide variety of conditions, from pretty hard snow to some decent groomers to some weird but fun wet groomers on a rainy day. Even got it in a little bit of powder and then a little bit more powder. And I rode this with Union Contact Pros, Union Atlas, Burton Kendos, Burton Ions, and a few other boots. To give you a short summary, the Aero is kind of a unique board. It sits a little more centered on board than the Nexus next to it. I love saying that. And it's a little stiffer, it's a little more drivey, a little more between the feet, but still a little more directional too in some aspects, and in other aspects it isn't compared to the Nexus. It's a very unique board in the line. It's probably the most specific to a few tasks that it really excels in, but it doesn't feel like the most well-rounded of all these boards. With my crew and myself, I think we all liked the Nexus a little better, but this does have some advantages for some of you that are looking for a specific type of ride. When it comes to sizing, this 57 fit me really well. I felt like it just matched up perfectly with my boot size. I'd say like 9 and 10 is a really good fit for this. It handled my weight really well too. I was kind of surprised at all these boards at how well they handled a heavier rider like myself. Didn't seem like I was stressing the board too much. When it comes to shape, this has a little bit of taper. It's very directional, as you can see, but the on-snow feel of the Aero is very unique because whether you have it on reference or set a little forward or set a little back, it just feels very similar and between the feet, where the Nexus doesn't. When you ride it like on reference stance with the Nexus, it feels pretty centered, kind of like the Aero, but softer. And then when you set it all the way back, which you can set further back with the Nexus, it feels a little more off the tail. It kind of, the personality of the board changes and becomes a little more surfy and a little more turny. So this Aero always feels kind of between the feet, and it has a very full camber profile. I think it's almost traditional camber. It might just have just a touch less, but it's almost unnoticeable when you look at the camber profile, and it really does feel like full camber on snow. Really likes an advanced to expert rider. It feels very locked in, and if you get off your game, it's not as easy to skid a turn, so not that advisable for an intermediate, unless you want to go through what I went through when I learned on camber years ago. Let's talk flex here. Kind of, you know, good give in the nose, medium stiff in the tail, in the center, and then kind of about the same in the tail. And overall, there's just a nice give to it that I like. It's medium, but borders on that medium stiff side. What I found was cool though is the way this interacts on snow. It's doable buttering. It's not ideal. It takes some work. It takes some effort, but I could nose butter pretty well, and overall, it had a good feel to it. But if you want more butterability, it's definitely the Nexus next to that. And when it comes to pop, you really feel like you're sitting over all this camber, and there's just such a nice spring underfoot. And this is really easy to access the ollie power and get some air, even for an average rider like myself. When it comes to speed, yeah, this is the board you get over the Nexus because it can handle some decent speed. It's not like, none of these boards are like super bombers. The Forma is the most bomby, but it's such a different board. It kind of goes more in line with a 2-board quiver kind of thing, or a 3-board quiver like they're going for here. That's the bomber, the Forma. The Aero's next, and then the Nexus is last. The base glide is exceptional, and when waxed, it's just up there with the best of the best. I rode this against some Jones bases, which are bases I love and have amazing glide. This felt just like those. When it comes to uneven terrain, this isn't a bad all-day resort ride. I've ridden this in everything from hard snow to some uneven conditions to some messy powder to some bumps, little bumps here and there, and it really handles things well. It's a great all-day resort ride. They really got the construction and the flex personality and the dampness down really well. It does a good job at being poppy and springy without being like ultralight and ultra poppy and chattery. It does really well in uneven snow, especially if you're somebody who likes to turn through stuff. This does really well. The edge hold's pretty solid. I was impressed. I don't see any real disruptions in the side cut, and comparing these against boards with disruption in the side cut on the same day, I was impressed at how well they did. They're still not maybe the perfect hard snow to icy snow board, but they're great in all conditions you want to ride, and they don't grab, and all of these boards did that very well. When it comes to turn initiation, this was pretty quick for me. I don't know what's going on there, but just the way this board turned, it turned really quick edge to edge. But when you get into more of the turning experience, after you've got it on edge, it was kind of interesting. It kind of slowed down once the side cut was engaged, and it didn't really want to just like go from flat to edge over and do a hard turn if you lean into it. It felt more down the line and like it wanted to track straight a little more than it wanted to turn. And so for some that might be fun, and for others it might not be. It all depends on personal preference. But I found that I could carve this pretty well, but it wasn't like a circle carver. And for some reason I had more fun doing that on the Nexus and a shit ton more fun on the Forma. That was one of my highlights of my turning this year. It was so much fun. Now when it comes to powder, there's pretty good float for a board that feels almost full camber. I like the Nexus a little more because it has more directional float. You could set it further back on board and really get that nose to float a little easier for being what it was. But this isn't bad. It's more for the person who really understands how to ride camber and powder and keep their plane and their speed, but they want all that pop and that drive, and they like to get air and spin, and they're looking for more of that. I would say that's where this shines more for an Austin Smith kind of rider. Which I am not. But it's got better float than I thought. I thought it would just suck having all that powder and not that much setback on board, but it's actually all right. When it comes to switch, it's really interesting. I had a lot of fun riding both these boards, the Nexus and the Aero switch. The Aero did a really good job, and I expected that taper to come into play a little more, and it really didn't. By the way, it's not that washy either. It feels really double-ender-ish for having that little bit of taper. I think it would be fun to ride in the pipe. I think it's great for a kicker. So not bad in the park, but maybe not really where it's meant to be. Overall, I had a fun time with this, and I think depending on the kind of rider you are, this could work for you, especially if you have something else like the Forma for the deep, deep days. So there you have it. So here's Nick talking about the Aero.
So the Aero, we rode on a day that was what? I mean, maybe 6 inches of snow, fresh pow with a lot of crust underneath. I'll be honest, I had a hard time turning this board over onto a toe side. I'm not sure if it was the stance or it was the taper or the length, but I kind of had a hard time with this one. It was a pretty stiff deck for today. I do see an use for it where if you're a really aggressive carver, a really aggressive mountain freestyle type of guy, I could see where this goes. I could see Austin riding a board like this. I could see his personality in it for sure. But I think today was just a rough day to really get the full feel for this guy.
All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now if you need advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So, thanks for watching.